When I decided to revisit Condemned Criminal Origins, I was bracing myself for an aging relic of early Xbox 360 horror, but I was quickly reminded why this game holds a special place in my heart of horror and the heart of horror enthusiasts. Its oppressive atmosphere, gritty story, and visceral combat still holds up nearly 2 decades later. The game starts with the player in control of Ethan Thomas, an FBI agent assigned to the serial crime unit in the city of Metro. Thomas is somewhat special. He has the ability to sense a killer's actions. Not only that, Thomas has the highest solve rate in the unit. Though recently many of his cases have gone cold, and is convinced that the recent rise in serial killers is connected to a spike in crime against vagrants, aka homeless people. Thomas heads into the building with Detective Dickinson, where they are to meet Officer Becker of Metro PD. Dickinson says that the patrolman Becker said there was a mannequin involved, just like the matchmaker. And the matchmaker is a serial killer that uses mannequins in his crimes. Dickinson says that Thomas' car broke his light and tells Ethan Thomas to use his flashlight in the dark building. This is where I get my flashlight that will be used throughout the game. We meet up with Becker, who found the crime in which there seems to be a dead woman on the floor at the dinner table. Thomas' phone rings at the time where he picks up as a woman named Rosa, who is a lieutenant of the unit, says she is your lab tech again on this one. Basically saying you and her have known each other other times, and this is not the first case together. Rosa tells Thomas how the wireless data transfer system enables you to investigate and collect evidence at the scene of the crime and transmit it to Rosa for analysis. It's a tool throughout the game that is one of the many things that makes this game unique and will play a big part in the plot of this game. I first used the tool to determine the cause of death using a UV light to find the trauma point and then to take the correct picture. Rosa says the woman was strangled by hand, except the bruise intensity indicates the killer is right-handed. And missing the index finger on the hand, there's more to this. Ethan Thomas runs a laser light on the crime scene and sees the glowing green on the mannequin's face. I use the camera to zoom in and take the picture. Rosa gets the image and says it's the same mark and goes on to say it's the work of the matchmaker who kills young women violently and poses them in grisly table type, kind of like dinner table scenes with male department store mannequins, with the mannequin always somewhat disfigured by a mark on the face. Dickinson then says to Becker that there is no smoking on the crime scene, and this is when Becker says, "I don't smoke." Dickinson says someone was, and he goes on throughout the building finding where the smell is coming from. That is when we hear movement upstairs.
He's right above us. Call for backup now.
This is Officer Becker. We need backup immediately. 4th and Stark. Potential homicide suspect still in building.
Officers are on their way. ETA 10 minutes.
Copy that.
Becker and I will head up the fire escape. You wait here for backup. Shit. Okay, now he's playing with us. Change of plans. Becker, secure that door. Thomas, check out the building and get these lights back on.
All clear, Agent.
Sooner we finish up here, the better. Let's go. Oh, and for Christ's sake, be careful.
So now I must get the lights back on in this building. I have my first weapon in this game, which is a pistol, and I face my first enemy, which is some drug addict homeless man, which is what Dickinson assumes. And he is right, as Rosa gives me a call and tells me the city of Metro is filled with addicts, vagrants, psychotic individuals gone terribly bad, and that they come in all kinds. She tells me to be careful as I move in, and I begin to learn the controls. This is mostly a melee game, and ammo is not something you can collect on guns, so I have to use my gun or guns wisely throughout the game. I can also turn my gun or any gun into a melee weapon, able to pistol whip and such. I go through this building and man, the atmosphere is unique. The creepy, tense feeling, and throughout you can really hear the homeless crazy people making the noises, moving things, groaning, and all sorts of weird noises. Along with the game giving you this great instrumental in the background of the gameplay, the game atmosphere is also unique because it's one of the darkest games I've ever played, and it really adds on to the creep and tense factor of the gameplay. But I finally reached the fuse box to turn on the lights into the building. Matchmaker now has taken my gun, and I'm left defenseless, and now we get into the melee combat. You can grab all sorts of weapons in this game, be it an iron pipe, 2x4, a table leg, mannequin arms, paper cutters, rebar, cleavers, shovels, crowbars, hammers, fire axes, etc. The combat is simple yet fun. You have a parry button basically which lets you stop incoming attacks. You have to time it wisely, of course, or you will get hurt. Also, you get a kick. Basically a shove attack if you want something faster with range to get them off of you. And with that, you get these special animations when you hit these enemies enough. They fall into their knees and you get 4 options to take down the enemies. A punch, ram, snap, slam. Pretty cool stuff, but back to the story. I make it into a room where I see Dickinson on the other side of the building, where he says he heard an explosion in which Thomas says the fuse box had a shortage, and then says that he is trapped over here and that the suspect has his gun. Dickinson says to take this fire axe and chop your way out, in which he basically gives you the important tool in the game that breaks entry barriers, be it crowbars, hammers, fire axes, and shovels. Dickinson gives some tips on faster weapons and slower but powerful weapons, as well as tells me how to use a taser. Now I'm equipped with a taser which stuns enemies and can be used to disarm them as well. So I make my way through and chop down the door to get through to the next part of this. I get to use my taser and use my fire axe throughout, but then
how does it feel to be on this end of the gun? But listen, you bastard, don't mess this up for us. We are both on the same path of righteousness.
Thomas!
And the path takes strange turns.
Police! Drop the weapon now!
Be ready for death, Agent Thomas. It shall come visit you again.
Hello, Ethan.
Who are you? What is going on?
Calm yourself. My name is Malcolm Van Horn. I was a great friend of your father's.
Yes, I remember you a long time ago, but why are you here now?
Last night, well, I was nearby. An unfortunate scene. You did your best, but it could not be helped.
The detectives.
They're dead. Shot with your weapon. And you will be blamed for their deaths.
Ridiculous. I'll just tell them.
What? Tell them the truth? They have already decided the truth.
This is insane. I can't just give up the Bureau.
It's already been taken from you. Now join me and help yourself.
Open up, it's the police.
Damn. Take your bag and head across to the metro station. I will meet you later.
Agent Thomas, you know you're in there. Open up now.
Ethan, you must trust me. I am here to help. Now go.
Chapter 2 begins with Ethan Thomas escaping the building where the police are as Malcolm Van Horn distracts the cops to give Thomas time to escape. The police are now after Ethan Thomas as Dickinson and Becker were shot by Ethan's weapon and will be blamed for their death. Van Horn tells him to head to Metro Station where he will meet him later. So now I must head forward where I find images in a trash can. It's sent over to Rosa where she says those are pictures of you in your apartment that was taken across the alley from within the Metro Station. Rosa tells him she also sees smudges across the face of the photo and she wants you to locate a sample and transfer it over to her. So I look for a green glowing trace and find it, send it over, and Rosa analyzes it, and the liquid is C41 color, photo developer fluid, common among shutterbugs who develop their own shots. Ethan finds out these photos were processed here in Metro Station, so now I must locate the room where the photos were processed. I take down an enemy with a crowbar and use that same crowbar to open the door into the basement of the Vagrants. The phone soon rings again where Van Horn is on the end and tells Ethan the police are searching your apartment and has no faith in Ethan's innocence and tells him he needs to prove his innocence. Van Horn tells him he has a special talent and needs to rely on those talents to remain alert. So I go forward where I fight more homeless people to find a shotgun to open this locked door entry barrier. I do just that and the phone rings again. And Van Horn speaks more and tells him he knows many things about Ethan and that he knew you since your father's death and have been watching, hoping to find your potential. He goes on to say you've become an excellent investigator and all that. Not through training or luck, but by instinct. He says that he's capable of seeing much more, saying there's a gift and that it can help you and others. But the story continues once more, where I get into the train station hub, where there's tons of enemies. Luckily, I have one, if not the most powerful weapon in the game, a sledgehammer. I take down the enemies where I seem to have run into a green glowing trail, which seems to be that C41 liquid developer fluid. So I follow the trail of fluids on the floor, which leads me to a place with the elevator button with prints on it. Rosa says she can't really work with it since it's a partial print and tells me to keep looking. I find the fuse box and turn the lever on, activating the elevator that was closed. I take the elevator and once again run into more fluid trails, which lead to a shelf blocking a door. I search the room to find photos, cameras, and the camera pointing to Ethan Thomas's apartment. I once again use my tools and see a green handprint on the recorder. Rosa says this print is a match from the one before, but no files, no records. She says she will keep looking though. So now that we have some kind of clue, I move on and find even more photo fluids and newspapers on the wall that I take a picture of and send to Rosa. Rosa says the initial scan indicates 18 newspaper clippings, 11 from our own evening edition and 7 from nearby community papers, all with the same theme of serial killers. Most different, but all of them are cases Ethan worked on, some having markings in a black felt tip pen, still running frequency analysis on the marking to see if we can guess what they mean. As that call ends, a shadowy figure breaks open a shelf and it's like a mini boss battle, and I take him out only to be just a vision in my head. Ethan throws up and looks up to find the matchmaker looking at him. I run after him as a chase happens of cat and mouse through the Metro Station door. In Chapter 3, I'm still chasing down the suspect and now making my way into the train station. I seem to have caught up to him only for him to pass an entry point I could not get to. The serial killer or matchmaker beats down 2 bums and moves forward, and now I'm a bit stuck, but I have to fight my way through some bums myself. The chase is on, and it's only derailing because of the huge amount of homeless drug addicts I have to fight through. I once again see him and I must go down the escalator until... big rumble happens, or should I say bum fights, but with the pistol, it's pretty easy to take them down, and I do just that. I find the suspect on the train, and that is about to take off, so I get onto the back of it, which is the only way aboard, since all the doors are locked. The train leaves off, and my character really has no way of supporting himself on the platform. The vagrants begin to climb aboard, and I'm forced to fight them on this tiny, small platform. The platform soon begins to loosen, and now it is chapter 4, and now that I lost the train, I move forward in the subway tunnels and get to the next stop where the train will be, and we now run into a new type of enemy from the enemies in this game called the Influence, or you could just call them the Rejects or Crawlers. These ghoulish squatters that crawl on all 4 limbs and can also walk on 2 legs. They're fast, but very weak, easy to beat on, easy to lose track of. There's an entry barrier where I need to open a lock pad and a shovel is required, so I move forward and find that shovel. Simply, but there are enemies among me. I must take out enemy of the mission, almost killing me, but I make it to my destination. I find the train stop and search the subway for clues, and find a print on a fire extinguisher. I take a photo and send it to Rosa, and Rosa says she cannot get a read on the print because it's smudged, but get a sample since he's scared and sweating like a horse. Now that I use my blue UV light to get a sample on that smudged print, Rosa says that this DNA profile will take a while and that I need to keep myself busy, and that is when I see the matchmaker leaving the vicinity. And not only that, a new enemy type. And these guys are called sandhogs. They're larger, muscular enemies that mostly wield sledgehammers and other heavy weapons. They are tanky and take quite a few hits to take them out. This scene is insane because the bums start taking each other out and even get into the subway train I'm in. It becomes an all-out war. Afterwards, I make my way near a fan where there's a map. I take a picture of it and send it to Rosa. She says it's a train schedule, but there's some shadows. She says he's gotta have more than a locker to play with. Rosa soon calls back and says document is a standard city issued train schedule. Pressure has been applied from a stylus highlighting 2 scheduled routes, both which originate from Central Metro Station. She goes on to say that she also determined the DNA from the sweat sample in the train matches DNA from the cigarette butt, and she then says the guy you're following is the guy who killed the 2 policemen, Dickinson and Becker. Ethan says something is still not adding up as the phone call ends and I move forward, taking on some more cracked out rejects. Soon the search goes cold and I have to search the lower tunnels for any clue or sign of the man I'm following, the matchmaker. I soon make it to the table and take a photo of this train schematic. Rosa calls and says it looks like a blueprint for a Holman number 8 subway passenger car. Searches the local businesses registry shows Holman was the city's contractor for the cars years ago. She tells me to get a close-up of the red circle area on the picture, and I take the photo and do just that. Rosa says the circled part highlights a sealing compartment in the car, and that they generally seal the doors to these suckers shut when they go out of commission. A crowbar will work best to open the subway car. Once inside, find the compartment. So I do just that and get a crowbar, should I say, find one, and I use my tool to find evidence and take a sample. I send it to Rosa, where she says the dust on the end of the crowbar is a common plaster mix. The pigmentation particles mixed in with the dust are of a soft pinkish hue, which Ethan goes on to say department store dummies in question, in which Rosa says you got it. So I have the crowbar now to open the subway car. I use my green light tool and find a trace, a print, a sample somewhere, and I find it. It's a footprint on a seat. I take the picture and Rosa says that these are common shoes, though a big footprint that matches Badger's footwear's protector pattern. She goes on to say she will run a buyer search locally, and then Ethan opens the compartment and finds a bunch of mannequin pieces. I take a picture of the mannequins, and Rosa says Bart's department store in question, and says it went out of business 14 years ago and squatters took over it immediately. Ethan says that it's a good place for the matchmaker to be there since it's a good source of mannequin parts. He says he should go down there, as Rosa says don't get carried away and that even the cops don't go down there. Ethan hears the train announcement of Route 16 to Burnside, and Rosa says that train will take you straight to the department store, so now I must rush there as more enemies appear, and it's a lot of rejects, aka crawlers, around in my path. There's gunshots being fired and sandhogs appearing as well, but I make it through to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Thomas, it's Farrell. Running from the Bureau will do no good. You know we'll find you eventually. Look, I understand. The caseload became too much. You weren't solving cases like you used to. You're talented, high-strung. You snapped. It happens sometimes.
Look, I did not snap. Someone else killed those policemen. It looks like it might have been the matchmaker.
With your gun? That seems unlikely, doesn't it? We have psychiatric staff that can help you sort things out.
With all due respect, I don't need a shrink.
Chapter 5 starts up with Malcolm Van Horn calling Ethan once again and says that Ethan is being investigated by the FBI for the murder of 2 police officers, which are of course Dickinson and Becker. The phone call is over and now I'm in the department mannequin building that has been vacated and ruled over by squatters for a while now. There's a lot of strange noises, and that is when I run into my first bum enemy. I handle him and continue on. I move forward, and that is when I meet an exclusive level enemy called mannequins. These mannequins are people disguised as mannequins, wearing suits, dresses, in an attempt to blend into the environment. They walk slow and steady. They're very quiet. They are basically similar to the normal addict vagrant enemies in health and attack pattern. But afterwards, I get to a room where I start scanning the area for clues and evidence. I notice a handprint in blood. I take the photo and send it to Rosa, and she says this matches what we got from the crime scene, and she goes on to say the print you got from the tape recorder at the metro station isn't on this hand, meaning this is not the same hand we saw earlier. I once again scan, but this time with my UV blue light, and see a blood splatter on the wall. I take the picture and send it to Rosa. Rosa says the blood droplet size and pattern indicate the victim sustained a heavy blow, and height of blood on wall indicates a head wound. Now with that all done, I move forward and run into a weird mannequin reject like woman enemy type. After I defeat her, I have another evidence scene where I use my green light to find a certain glowing print that leads me to a trail by the elevator. I need to find a route to the ground floor to continue my search. I have now a sledgehammer that held the elevator door open, the strongest weapon in the game, outside of guns of course. I beat a few mannequins on my way down to the ground floor and continue on my search to find those trackings. A few enemies here and there while tracking the trail and move forward and find myself in a weird section of the level. There's dozens of mannequins surrounded around me. I break the glass and get even lower into the department store. This time in the basement following the trail and find the weird glowing footprint. I take the picture and send it to Rosa, and she says The footprint is an exact match to the print I found in the metro station car, and it may be the matchmaker, but I'm still concerned about the rogue fingerprint from the tape recorder. Rosa tells me to keep following that trail, that it may lead to answers or a body. Ethan says he cannot because the trail ends due to a flooding in this part of the department store, and Rosa says to use your gas spectrometer. Dead bodies start decaying immediately, producing hydrogen sulfide and traces of methane or methane. I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyways, if there is a body, you should be able to sniff it out. So I use my spectrometer to find clues, and Rosa right away finds out that the air has methane in it thanks to the device, but it's relatively weak. I continue on my search, fighting enemies while also using the spectrometer to get closer to my answers. Ethan has a clue. It's in one of the dressing rooms, and he's right. A dead body is on the wall, and it seems to be hanging there while holding onto a mannequin by one hand. I take the picture of the dead body and send it to Rosa. Rosa says this is a matchmaker scene, but something is not quite right. She tells me to photograph the victim's face, and I do just that and send it to her, which she responds with. The shape and color of the facial mark is consistent with the painted marks on the male mannequins at previous matchmaker crime scenes. But she goes on to continue to say something is off. Something is not quite right. She asks Thomas to get a shot of his right hand. That happens, and Rosa says he's missing his right index finger and that it does not look like it's a recent loss either. It seems like this is the matchmaker himself, but the matchmaker did not kill himself. This is a setup, so there's more evidence to collect of how the matchmaker died. I get a handprint mark on his neck and send it to Rosa, and she goes on to say no usable DNA traces, basically meaning the killer must have worn gloves. But there's something that is too early to call. She says small particles that show up as a potential organophilic, can't really pronounce that, pesticide. She continues to say she will work more on that and see where it goes. I hear a sound, and it looks like a squatter just killed a police officer in front of me. Now that police show up at the department store, they're camped outside in the front of the store. I take out some enemies until I get a phone call from Rosa, where she says the newspaper clippings you found in the room at the metro station. Each article talks about a serial killer that was on your case list. 9 names were mentioned. Of those, 7 of the 9 were crossed out in each of the clippings by a black felt tip marker. The only names that weren't was the matchmaker and the torturer, but the cross names were of cases that have all gone cold. Which Ethan says, are you implying that there's someone stalking serial killers? And you know, if you watch the show Dexter, you'd understand where this is headed, but it seems like this serial killer has his own diary where he's killing serial killers and marking it off in his little book. Then the police break open the window and start smoking the area out, or should I say tear gas. I escape the department store quickly though.
Yeah,
You were going to call me back.
sorry. So, the fingerprint in the metro station and the boot print are not the matchmakers, but this other guy. So, is he the torturer?
Doubtful. It's not the torturer's MO. Think about it. The final murder in each of those cases on your list ended with a killing similar to the previous ones. This guy goes around and kills the killers in the same way that they're killing the innocent. He's like an Uber killer, a serial killer X, a perp not on your original case list.
So, this serial killer X kills serial killers. He takes them down using their own methods. If the torturer is still at large, what's his MO?
Pretty sick stuff. He likes to abduct people, torture them for fun, then let them loose and hunt them down. His goal is to drive them to suicide so he doesn't actually deliver the final blow.
What is this city coming to? All right, so I've got to find the torturer and save his ass so the new killer doesn't kill him?
Life of an agent.
Yeah, well, I'm no longer an agent, apparently.
Sorry. Look, I can't get you the Bureau dossier on the torturer now, as you can imagine. But we can can find out some public information. And I have something else you need to see.
Okay. Well, it's too dangerous for me to come to the Bureau. Can you meet me at the city library?
You know there's been a fire there. The whole thing's shut down for repairs.
Exactly. There's damage, but there's got to be a terminal or two still working. And no one will know. Can you meet me there in 15 minutes?
I'll be there.
I must now meet Rosa at the city library. I rush outside to find a helicopter scanning the area with its spotlight. Not only that, it seems the addicts are here too. There's heaps of these bums coming out of nowhere, but I take them down with whatever is in my possession, even a locker door. The phone rings and it's Rosa once again, and she says we're getting reports of violent outbreaks near your current location. She tells me you need to get the hell out of there. And this is where I head outside, moving onto a rooftop where I see cops shooting at addicts. I jump off the roof and get to the streets where a rumble on the streets happen. I'm fighting waves of addicts while the chopper is telling me to disperse, with a spotlight on all of us. In this game, not only are the enemies against me, the enemies fight each other as well. The cop sirens begins and it's just chaos in this whole level.
What the hell was that?
Thomas, I'm at the library. Where are you?
Rosa, be quiet.
Hey, Smithy! Johnson, wait up!
Rosa, are you still there?
Very few people can tell me to shut up and get away with it.
Sorry, I'll be there in a couple minutes.
Hurry. I have a feeling I'm not alone here.
I make it into the city library, and now all I need to do is find Rosa. The place is empty, messy somewhat, and some guts on the floor as well. I call in the elevator and... After that, I make it to Rosa.
Thomas, over here. This might not have been a good idea. Squatters and addicts have moved in, and they don't like company. Come this way. I have something to show you. I used my security clearance to do a little checking up on you. I found this folder in your supplemental personnel file.
I open the FBI folder, and what I find is interesting. As Rosa says, during your last physical, they found several abnormalities. For starters, your bone and muscle densities are off the chart. She also goes on to say Ethan has a hyperactive serotoninergic system in the brain, in which she has no idea what that means. And she says lastly that there is a chest x-ray that's been redacted, right where Ethan's esophagus and larynx are. Rosa continues and says someone blacked out the x-ray and added notation, see subjects PR56. And a PR56 is a special addendum to a personnel record, and Ethan is classified black. Rosa says that this is a pretty top-level security, way beyond either you or me. Our government is awfully interested in you. Once again, Ethan has visions and soon snaps out of it as we get back into the gameplay where Rosa has given us a super taser, able to completely knock down an enemy stunned. But moving forward,
Jeez, Thomas, you okay? You looked like you were about to faint there. Come on, let's get this over with. Scavengers looking for parts to sell, or just maniacs destroying things. We have to find a terminal that isn't damaged.
me and Rosa need to find a terminal that is not damaged. We must search the offices for a computer that is in working order. Suddenly, some weird nightmare happens again, and Ethan is again fighting off imaginary enemies in his head, while Rosa has no idea what is going on since the door ended up getting locked. Rosa breaks open the window and finds out we're not alone in this library, but good news is she found a working computer. She says there's a search engine specific to the library, so just type in the torturer's name and we should get the latest info from local news to broadcast feeds and so on.
Damn it. Can anything else go wrong? We'll have to find the server room and get the network back.
So now I must find the server room to get this computer working until... Phone rings and then Mystery Man answers. And as he's speaking to Ethan about expecting so much more from him, we hear Rosa in the background and the call breaks up. Now I must find Rosa, and in order to do that, I need a crowbar to open the entry barrier. But first, the UV blue light for evidence comes in handy as a weird liquid sample is on the floor. I collected the evidence that is stored while Rosa is gone, and I go forward and beat down on some crazy addicts, and one has a fire axe that runs through the library trying to avoid me at any chance he has, but I beat on them and take the fire axe and move forward, and man, this super taser is powerful. I'm literally stunning enemies and stopping them, making them fall right onto the floor for seconds. But moving forward, more evidence comes in that I must find in the server room, which sees a weird handprint on the locker. I collect the evidence and also find terminal activity in the rare book room, which I'm guessing is where Rosa is. So now that I know where she is and have a crowbar, I break open the entry barrier and continue forward. I take the elevator to the second floor, and where I find enemies and a new weapon, which is a gun, a submachine gun. Bullets run out fast and melt through enemies, but still very useful when needed. I make it into the rare library book room where I find Rosa.
Back off, you bastard. Come any closer and I'll rip your head off.
Rosa, it's me, Thomas.
Oh, he must have clobbered me in the back of the head before taking off.
Are you okay? There were these shadowy things standing over you.
What? Look, while you're chasing shadows, that jerk tried to kill me. I bit him good, though, right on the hand. Did you get any of the blood sampled? I saw some hit the floor.
Yes, sampled and transferred back to the lab.
Excellent.
Rosa regains composure and uses the evidence I collected without her that was sent to the computer to analyze it. And Rosa says that the DNA from the sample matches DNA taken from the metro station hideout, and that this is the guy. This is our serial killer X, SKX for short, abbreviation. He killed the policeman, and he's been killing all the other guys on your case list. Ethan asks what the killer wanted with her. She replies with that he wanted to know what we knew about the torturer. He made Rosa look it up on the net. Rosa goes on to say he knows everything to the abduction, torture, and suicide. Rosa tells Ethan that the torturer is on your case list and that he's the only one whose trail has not gone cold since we ran into him. Rosa says that this serial killer X wants the torturer to die. He's on the hunt to find him. Now, me and Rosa go to access the school district micro records. Me and Rosa continue through this library where she says that there should be a staircase that leads to the micro.
Damn, that hurt. Yeah. Busted my flashlight, though.
Stay put. I thought I saw something down there in the dark. I'll be there in a minute. Thomas, it's me. Snap out of it.
I break my flashlight from the fall, but Rosa gives me her flashlight in this dark area so I can find my way out to reach her, and it comes in handy somewhat because there's a bunch of creepy ass rejects crawling around. I whack and shoot my way through these enemies and make my way back to Rosa in a harsh fight, and I made it back with a .45 cal pistol. Me and Rosa make our way to the basement and...
Okay, 8 years ago would put the kid and the teacher at the same school in 1997. Here it is.
Anderson Carl. There's a lot of Carl Andersons, but I bet this is our guy. He was enrolled or sentenced to an educational rehabilitation center for the severely troubled. St. Joseph's Secondary on Northeast 52nd and Fremont. It's been closed for 5 years, and no wonder. That's one of the worst parts of town. Christ, the cops have just been letting it go to hell for years.
Yeah, what about the faculty?
It doesn't list occupations, just a list of names. I'll take it back to the lab and see what I can find. It's him. He's been listening to us.
It looks like we've attracted other unwanted attention.
It seems as a bunch of enemies have found us, and through these library shelves are a bunch of bums, and basically, I have to take them down, and they put up a fight. Make me waste all my ammo, even making me use a .45 cal as a melee weapon. I take them out in a bit of a rumble, and then Rosa says that the exit is near and stops me to tell me, what about our serial killer X? Ethan responds that he's got the same info we do, and that means he's also gonna go to the school, in which Ethan says he has a chance to catch 2 killers in one net.
Thomas, it's Malcolm. How are you doing? Is the investigation going well?
It's going as well as it can be. Wait, what are you doing here? How did you know where to find me?
Oh, just a coincidence. Saw you from across the street.
Coincidence? I don't know what your game is here, Van Horn, but I've got a job to do, if you'll excuse me.
Now that Rosa gave Ethan a lift to the school, Ethan must find the missing teacher linked to Carl Anderson, who is the torturer. Once again, another abandoned, messy place, but this time in a school. I need a sledgehammer for entry barrier once again upstairs, so I start looking around and equipped with a now powerful sledgehammer, and I use it to break open the lock and reach past the first barrier, where we run now into a new enemy who is called the Butcher, or Miss Choppy we should say. She is 7 foot tall, obese cafeteria worker who wields a cleaver. She only appears in chapter 8 of Condemned, and we see the Butcher sending out rejects to attack me as she runs off. I destroy the rejects and continue on fighting off reject after reject, crawler after crawler. Afterwards, I'm in a classroom where I use my UV to scan samples on a chalkboard and send it to Rosa. She says it's human tissue and indicates that it is a human, that what's on the chalkboard is human lips and facial skin on the chalkboard. Said that twice. Rosa goes on to say she runs the faculty list and that the gym teacher at your local location during Carlson's tenure was a man by the name of Samuel Tibbets. And yes, his medical records do match the facial tissue on the chalkboard. So now, I need to search for clues leading to Mr. Tibbets' whereabouts. I try to search for my clues throughout this level and finally find a school kitchen where I run into the boss of this level, the Butcher. And man, she's sending out rejects on a hook, like a big cow leg on hooks. She's sending them to my location one at a time, but I take them out and use my gun on the Butcher and taser, but even that was not enough against her. She's tanky, she could take hit after hit, but I also wield an iron pipe, which is pretty weak. Luckily, with my taser, I'm able to stun her, get extra hits, and when I need it, and finally take her out. And take her cleaver after. I made it to the auditorium after and turn on the power, which brings down the basketball hoop that also has an arm attached to it. I scan it and send the data to Rosa, and when she says it's Tibbets, fingerprints from his personal file match the hand. It looks like the torturer got to him before we did. After the call, the basketball hoop falls apart, breaking the basketball court, where we see a basement below. And I head down and search through to find a ladder into the next place to an outside park behind, or I'm guessing the side of the school. I stumble onto a dead body on the park, which seems to be me. A phone call happens and it's Van Horn saying he wants to meet me out front. Ethan wakes up as he seemed to lose consciousness and the body of himself is not there anymore. Another hallucination happens and now big sandhogs appear, multiple of them that is. I fight them off with tasers, a fire axe, submachine guns, and a new weapon. A gun, a rifle that is. Looks like an old ass rifle for the time of this game's making. But I head back into the school building and I get a clue and start scanning the area with my UV light. I find blood on the wall. I take a picture, send it over to Rosa, in which she says, blood type still a match. This is Tibbet's trail. With that confirmation, I move forth into the men's and women's locker rooms. It seems I fight off some enemies using my new rifle, and it's strong, but I soon run out of ammo, and once again melee myself out of this situation. Near a locker, I take out my UV light, getting another clue. I send the sample over, as Rosa says not much new here. I'll run a DNA profile. Ethan says the trail ends at this locker. Rosa tells me to look inside, and what I find is the body of Tibbet. I photograph it to send it straight to Rosa, and she says this is indeed Tibbet. She wants me to take a close-up now until...
Help me.
Help is on the way. Who did this to you?
Carl Anderson.
The torturer. Okay, take it easy. Do you know where he is now?
Other man came. Took Carl away. Left me here to die.
Rosa speaks on a pesticide we found on the matchmaker's neck that was also on Tibbet's, which is highly toxic. Rosa goes on to say there's other cases of chemicals in this which only can be matched to a brand name called Applewell. She says she put in a contact to the company to see if we can get a purchaser's list. Ethan tells Rosa apples in question, as Rosa says it was used on all sorts of agricultural crops. Apples would be one of them. Ethan goes on to say if there's a chance an apple orchard is up there in a Brill town. Rosa says she will get right on it, and now we are done, so now we can meet Van Horn outside of the school. I make it to the swimming pool area of the school and jump into the pool until... I'm in another hallucination situation, and a bunch of rejects start falling from the sky. It feels like I'm in a horde mode fighting for my life. No way to heal, and I'm really down to my last hit, but I somehow make it through and wake up. I have to use a fire axe to get out of the pool area, which I do. I beat a bum and take the axe, chop down the door, and now in this locker place I must find a hammer to break the lock open. The lockers are filled with blood everywhere, and then... I wake up from the weird hallucination and my phone rings. Rosa says we got it and that there are no currently licensed fruit orchids in the town or surrounding countryside or Briar, but there was one once. Appleseed Orchid just outside of Briar on Route 4. In business for 40 years, but closed its doors just 10 years ago after a tremendous outbreak of apple maggots. The phone call ends and I meet Van Horn outside of the school.
So why are you in on this?
I have a sense of responsibility. I needed to help.
Help? You mean with my investigation?
Yes, among other things.
There was a time I thought I was the best investigator the Bureau ever had. Now it seems they were interested in me for other reasons.
What do you mean?
I saw my file. Apparently I'm some sort of circus freak to them.
That may not be helpful. I wonder how much they know of what is happening. I would stay away from the Bureau as long as I could.
It's not like I have much choice, since they still think I killed those two officers.
Their deaths were unfortunate, but maybe it's best this way.
Best? You seem to know a lot more about what's happening than you're letting on.
This is Appleseed Orchard Estate. Stay on your toes. I'll drop you off at the house and head over to the barn. I'll meet up with you later.
I am now inside the house to hunt down the serial killer X. I first look for evidence walking in, and I take a picture of this writing on the wall and send it to Rosa. She says it looks important and that there may be more to this riddle, and she's right. I get out my UV blue light and find writing all over the walls, leading into multiple different pathways. Next picture says, "See yourself be." In the basement, which is one out of the 4 riddles to be found. The next one is in a oven downstairs that says, "Beyond which you." And the third one is next, and I go into the attic where everything turns black and white, and I find this insane enemy type, and this hallucination called the Dark Watchers. And these enemies hold 2 metal sticks like escrimmums or whatever, and they have some crazy flashy moves, almost like Nightwing. And if you know Nightwing, you know, Batman's Robin turns to his own superhero Nightwing. He has these crazy electric batons. It feels like you're fighting a trained master of the blades of melee weapons. These enemies are technical and even have feints and follow-up strikes, like I'm in a damn fighting game. They require patience and timing to kill, and good blocks along with great taser stuns. I defeat the Dark Watcher in a struggle and continue on to find the next riddle that says to righteousness is. The final riddle is in this puzzle is near and in a closet, and it says the dark path. I give Rosa the last piece of the riddle and she replies with, the dark path to righteousness is beyond which you see yourself to be. She goes on to say she is running it through databases but is not receiving anything. She tells me to continue to search the house and I do just that. And Rosa soon calls back after exploring some more, and she says she might have something. She says that the riddle may sound ridiculous, but think about it. Something in which you see yourself to be. Well, that could be a mirror or something reflective. And I now have the riddle solved, and all I need to do is find a mirror or something reflective. And I find just that, a mirror in the basement that leads to a secret location, and now the investigation continues. I see a newspaper or multiple on the table. I take the picture and send it to Rosa, where she says, these newspapers are about you, Ethan, and that there's a few newspaper stories about your investigations. It's got Eternal Bureau newsletter articles on your career progress and promotions, posting, things like that. She goes on to say the last few pages are newspaper clippings about serial killers not being found, some of these circled in red with a big exclamation point beside them. It seems like our serial killer X has been following your life and career pretty closely. Ethan questions why, as it seems both have no clue as to why this killer is obsessed with Ethan Thomas. Noise is suddenly heard upstairs. I go to check it out, leaving the basement to find until I hear.
God, please. I can't take this anymore. My ears. My hands.
I need to get upstairs, but the piano has blocked out the stairs, so I need to find an axe to cut free the piano and go upstairs to find who this man is. And that's when a bunch of sandhogs and vagrants, bums, you name it, start getting into the house, and I have to take down a bunch of well-equipped bums, and I do just that, as well as get a crowbar from a sandhog that gives me the opportunity to break open a safe and get the shotgun inside holding 5 bullets at my disposal. It's useful, scrappy, and now can take out enemies without much trouble, until of course I'm out of bullets. I continue to use the weapons on the floor, such as the 2x4 to the shovel, and finally find the fire axe I need. I stun the man, slap him with the shovel, and take my objective weapon. I now head upstairs and... A man is impaled on the floor. I use my light to take a picture of his glowing green nails and send it to Rosa. Rosa says this is a positive match. This guy is Carl Anderson, the one the pre-calls the torturer. Ethan says it looks as though serial killer X got to him. The killer painted him up, tortured him, and drove him to suicide, just like Anderson did to his victims. Rosa says that SKX, serial killer X, must be near. Be careful. And all of a sudden another voice appears saying your lab access is terminated as of now. Taxpayers wouldn't like you using resources when you're officially on suspension. The man talking on the phone is Director Ike Farrell, the director of the FBI's Serial Crime Unit, SCU, abbreviation for short. Ethan tries to convince Farrell to talk to Rosa and that he's close to solving this. Farrell declines, saying Ethan to give himself up. Or give himself in and stop this nonsense. Ethan says he cannot do this, and Farrell responds with how he will find him. You can count on that.
Carl? Carl? Come on, Mr. Torturer. Don't you want to know what it feels like? We're not even half done. Carl, you know how this will end. I was put on this earth to bring you to justice. Your fate is in my hands. Oh, Carl. You've given up.
Wait for it.
It's a shame.
Wait for it.
Now, perhaps you know what you have put others through. Although it makes you even more pathetic that you weren't brave enough to kill yourself. Now I'll have to do the job and make it look right. So sad.
Now.
You shouldn't have come here.
It is now me versus the killer himself. The man serial killer X is slippery. He likes to run around the halls as you chase him and catch you off guard following him. I'm much slower, and I do the smart thing and slow down and with patience wait for him to come my way or to catch him by turning at the right moment to catch him. It's a simple battle with a little cat and mouse boss battle, and I have serial killer X in the palm of my hands. He's beaten until...
Leland, nephew, please listen to me. I am here to help. You are not yourself. You are not in your right mind. Let me help you. I know of what I speak.
Welcome to consciousness, my friend. Though you won't enjoy it long. We were good in the beginning. But you turned out to be kind of a failure, didn't you? You still don't get it? I've been using you, Ethan Thomas. I watched you and followed you and used you to find the serial killers you so desperately sought and then killed them. Okay, I must admit, I was a bit dramatic. Killed them the same way they'd killed their own victims. A bit of fun, you know? I got good at it. Shame it ruined you at the Bureau. But some things are unavoidable. Of course, since you're no longer going to be any help, there's no reason to go on this way. Now, how would you prefer to die? And I didn't like the torturer's methods much. Too risky. Perhaps a slit across the throat, like the roadside carver. Ah, short and sweet. Or maybe the bone cutter. Neatly dissected the body, removed the internal organs, and labeled them for the police to find. Oh, yes, he was one of mine, too. We were so close to him, but I got there first. Perhaps it would be better if you lost it.
Find and destroy it. It has caused all this madness. Go, kill it, now!
Van Horn takes down the man called SKX in the barn and tells me to run. I do just that, and this place is dark. Luckily, I have torches to light the way, or should I say 2x4s on fire.
You belong to us, Ethan. You always belong to us.
Some weird voice keeps entering Ethan's head, and this seems to be the forces of evil calling on to Ethan to join them. But what? I guess I have to move forward and find out, and man, these enemies are just vagrants but completely mutilated in the face. Barely any resemblance of a face, and at best one fucked up eye. These enemies are disturbing to look at, but as I continue on, I have an entry barrier again. I turn the power on to get that blockage out of the way and have it elevate whatever is blocking my path. With my rifle now, I could take out these enemies, but it is not enough. I have to go back to my 2x4 on fire to handle the last one and continue on. There's suddenly a Dark Watcher again, and he comes out of nowhere. I take him out tactically, yet almost dying. Luckily, there's healing near, and I move forward to find enemies holding rifles. I duck behind cover and sprint to get a rifle by my side. I take them both out quickly with the rifle with 5 bullets to spare. I go on to take out more enemies, and on the table there's a submachine gun. 20 bullets. This gives me a good amount of time to line them up and take them out. I use the rest of my bullets to take out the last target, only to be still alive. And now, back to my 2x4 to finish the job until a Dark Watcher does some karate-ass move behind me out of nowhere. I soon take him out, somehow surviving. Then, as I see a bird stabbed by a stick on the door, I take the stick and suddenly transport it into this building. It leads me into this place with a Dark Watcher standing on top watching me as a wave of enemies, or should I say horde, attack me relentlessly. And man, there's a lot of these ugly fucks. These things are ugly and there's just too many. Luckily, there's also a lot of health in cases, about 4 to 5 ready whenever to be used on the wall. This fight is one of if not the longest fights in the game, and the Dark Watcher finally appears, but this one just holds a large blade and swings it like a samurai, along with knowing some crazy ass martial arts. I find out it's called a Dark Primary, and not much is known, only that he is connected to this all, and that his fighting style is based on a Filipino martial arts known as Kali in the South Philippines. But this Dark Primary boss is the final boss, and he has 3 phases. The first is the one I fight in the barn. He's fast, he blocks often, he's the toughest fight in the game, and it shows. And the way to beat him is to take these metal things out of him, and I do that the first time on his shoulder. He gets up and leaps into the air. I get a little time to heal, even though a reject is behind me, but I do heal and climb the ladder to the second phase of this boss in the upper barn area. I once again have him on his knees and take another metal piece out of his back. Ethan begins to faint and wakes up in this hallucination black and white form where there's no roof to the barn, and now I'm in this third phase fight. He's stronger, quicker, smarter, but I soon take him down, grab his jaw, and pull another piece, but this time from his face. I grab him by his neck, coming back to reality, and snap his neck as I release him into a fire pit.
I can never go back, can I?
No, not to the Bureau, not to your old life. Thomas, you have looked into the face of hate, the visage of evil. Know that hate is in your soul, too. It is, sadly, everywhere. Mastering one's fear and controlling one's hatred is perhaps the most difficult thing one can do.
Well, at least it's over. It's dead, and the killings will stop. Stop the car.
No, you still don't understand. He's done unspeakable things, even though those he killed were killers themselves. But he isn't responsible. He's not in his right mind. He's...
Stop the goddamn car now! open the trunk.
Thomas, don't! He was a good boy. We were all good people. We were able to fight it back, most of us. My nephew was not as strong. He fell victim and destroyed so many things. We fought to save him. I must continue to do so.
I don't care whether the sick fuck is in his right mind or not.
Think of what you are doing. Both of you have a chance for redemption.
Redemption? Listen, old man, you used me just like he did. You used me to save your precious nephew, a serial killer. You're no better than he is.
You really know how to impress a lady, Thomas.
Around here, people keep to themselves.
Why the lay low routine?
I've been cleared of the murders, but my suspension has got me thinking. I guess I don't know who to trust anymore.
Yeah, tough break. Man, you look like crap.
Yeah, I've been better. You said you found something interesting?
Yes, very odd. A cult seems to be behind all this. We can tie them to the deaths of the serial killers investigated by your department.
A cult? The man responsible was Leland Van Horn.
Yes, I know. He manipulated both you and us, but where is he? We have no Leland Van Horn in custody.
Look, I explained all of this in my deposition to the Bureau.
But a lot of unanswered questions remain, Thomas, which brings me to why I'm here. Maybe we could make better sense of all this if more were found, but I guess you did your best. Anyway, the results suggest Leland may not have been working alone. Do you know anything about this? Who these people are? Are you affiliated with them in any way?
Rosa, can I trust you?
Of course you can trust me, Thomas. We've been through a lot together.
Look, I have no idea what any of it means. Something weird, something unexplainable happened during my investigation, but truthfully, the questions you ask, I can't answer. I'm sorry, Rosa.
I'm sorry too, Thomas. I really am. Take care of yourself.
This game is one of the best horror games I have ever had the pleasures of playing. It's gritty, it's psychological horror done right. It's unique, with its gameplay to investigation tools, gameplay, and its story. There's points in the story where it feels a bit dated, but the mystery is at its core of engaging and fun, with plenty of twists and a great villain to chase throughout the game. The biggest thing about this game is the great atmosphere and gameplay. The atmosphere is the standout feature. It's dimly lit, it's at times very dark, be it through abandoned houses to subways to department stores and broken down schools. This game has such incredible dread and claustrophobia when playing. The sounds of the enemies moving around throughout the levels, not knowing where they are, just hiding about, it's amazing. The game's reliance on melee combat rather than firearms really heightens the tension, because in my opinion, games with guns are never really that intense or tense to me. I don't fully have that tension of doom and gloom. Be it like a Resident Evil 4 or, a Resident Evil or, some other action survival shooter. It doesn't really give me that tension when I always have ammo, no matter if it's sparring or not. But yeah, it's just not the same as a man with nothing but broken pieces of furniture as weapons to fight to live. The combat really forces you to engage in brutality in great close quarter encounters. It has weight to its combat, and you can feel the combat system in every swing. It feels impactful, and yes, the controls are clunky by modern standards, but it's not frustrating, it's not aggravating, it's really fun and simple. The forensic investigation segments are by far the best I've ever seen in a game, or a game do it. They're still, till this day, groundbreaking yet simple. It's a great unique layer to this gameplay that makes Condemned so much more different than the other horror games. And I know I've talked about the sound already, but man, the oppressive lighting contributes to the game's sense of unease. Now add the sound and man, every creak of the floorboards, distant screams, groans, and yells, it's unnerving. And the sudden bursts of violence are just great with an already hauntingly minimal soundtrack. The game is said to be aesthetically influenced by films such as Silence of the Lambs and Seven. Condemned's designers wanted to create a game focused on either a new game mechanic or an existing mechanic with a fresh spin. And so they decided to apply their experience with FPS games to a game focused primarily on something not usually seen in first-person games, melee combat. And man, this worked greatly. This game still holds up amazingly today, and if you're a fan of 2000s horror games or horror games in general with similarities to games such as Resident Evil 7, Clive Barker's Jericho, Manhunt 1 and 2, Indigo Prophecy, the OG Max Payne games, Fear, Outlast, Cry of Fear, Singularity. Condemned is one of my favorite games, and it's been a great time revisiting such a high quality, unique horror game from Monolith Productions.